Hi, welcome to The Upside. I'm your host, Paul Santinello. This is a show where we talk about all the good things that happen in Longmeadow. Today we're going to diverge away a little way from that as we're coming upon the elections of 2012. My guest today is international political consultant Anthony Signoli. Tony, thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
We're going to delve in today, folks, into the presidential race, the senatorial race we have here in Massachusetts, touch maybe a little bit about some of the local races. There's not a lot of those, unfortunately, but really go into it. I just saw that the highlight today, as I'm looking at some of the news items, is that Meatloaf has endorsed Mitt Romney in Ohio.
Isn't that wild?
And I don't know if he's just, is he from Ohio? I don't know, but
He's got some juice in Ohio.
Yeah,
That's what it comes down to. Meatloaf can make a little difference.
Yep.
And when it's this tight, everything makes a difference.
Isn't it amazing, right?
Yeah.
Mitt Romney, the stodgy Republican, the tight guy, gets endorsed by Meatloaf. I wonder if they played that song, the one with, diving into home plate or something.
There you go. Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious, Meatloaf. I love that. But interestingly, Washington Post ABC poll is showing Romney at 50% of the vote, Obama at 47%.
Yeah.
And as someone, maybe about a month or so ago, 5 weeks ago, Romney was down about 10 points in Ohio, and that's closing ever so rapidly.
Yeah.
So there's some dynamics going on. And I think there was another poll, I was looking at Rasmussen today, that I forgot what the numbers were, but it was a huge disparity of the people who thought Mitt Romney won those three debates versus Barack Obama.
Yeah.
And we'll start with that. What were your thoughts about the debate? Because I was actually stunned, but that's
Well, everyone I think pretty much agrees that the first debate that, God bless him, the president just didn't really show up. And this may sound awful, but in my profession, spinning, I would have thought, gosh, let's make something up. Let's just say, gosh, golly gee whiz, or maybe it's even the truth, that the president got so busy that day and he was in the Situation Room all day, and maybe he was busy defending the planet from Martians or something.
Yep.
Say something as to why he was so disengaged, why he looked so tired, etc. Romney clearly won the first debate, and overwhelmingly so, and then was able to do just what he needed to in the next two. Whether you like him or you don't like him, he was able to hold key ground. And in the third debate, what he needed to do in that debate on foreign policy was to prove that he was no Barry Goldwater, that he was not someone that you'd be afraid of to have behind the big desk with the red phone, so to speak. And he did that. He did. I think that the president edged him out on technical points maybe in the second and the third debates, but it was so close that it really wasn't enough. Most folks scored the third one as a B+ and a B+ for both men. Initially, I kind of thought this is A- the president, B+ Mitt Romney. But in hindsight, when you look at it again, and that's what's important, how it plays out again, what the sound bites are, how it plays into the next day and the day after, Mitt Romney evened those few little points up pretty well. He did what he needed to do. What these debates have done is helped Romney stay on the trajectory that he's been on for the last few weeks. And Paul, I'll tell you, some of it is a better run Republican presidential campaign in swing states than I've seen in a long time. In Ohio, in places like Michigan. If anyone had told me a month ago that Barack Obama would be contended or having to fight in New Hampshire or in Michigan against, and I say this in no offense to Mitt Romney, God bless him, against Mitt Romney, I'd say, you're kidding me. And yet it's a battle. It's a real battle. So the polls you've mentioned, we look at those as the platinum standard, Rasmussen, always on target, ABC, and the NBC Washington Post poll is another one that the consultants, the players behind the scenes, we all do our own polling. We've all got our candidate stuff. We all go to see what that one is and what are the crosstabs. The key number in there is the one that I think is moving all this the way it is. And that's that 62% of all Americans, even those who support Barack Obama, are saying they want a different Barack Obama should he win a second term. They don't want a continuation of the priorities of the first term. That number is glaring. That's why I think things are as tight as they are. Yeah.
And there was some other number, 37% of the voters believe the country's headed in the right direction. Yeah. That's huge when you're in the president. I mean, it's election year. Yeah. Off election year, you can kind of fix that, but with a week and a half to go, there's no time. The commercials just can't do that type of damage control.
There you go. The ads right now, whether they be on the internet or television or radio, and it's very different as you go around the state, around the country rather. In some places, newsprint is still so important, especially in the battleground states where it helps you to get your voters out. But everything right now is so finite in the messaging. And you can see a difference as you're in the different states. In fact, I'll tell you, it has stunned me. I just saw this the other day. In North Carolina, one county has different campaign ads than the next county.
Okay.
If you're in Robeson County, the ads from the president are very, very, very oh gosh, how do I want to say it? General in the most part. It's just about, remember how this felt 4 years ago. Remember why we voted the way we did. Come on back into the fold, that kind of a thing. That's intriguing to me. Whereas Romney's are a little different. They're almost Reagan-esque. It's let's feel good again about America. He's gotten to a point where he doesn't have to be as specific, precinct by precinct, ward by ward, so to speak. He's doing the bigger general message. The president's commercials are smart messaging, but they're specific. They're targeted to move certain votes and whatnot around. It is amazing. This is one for the history books. A decade from now, they'll still be writing about this campaign, especially because of the money. The dollar amount is amazing. I remember having the good fortune, I think about a year ago at this time, to do this show with you, and we just touched on this, and I had said, this will be $2 billion. And I actually got some emails and some folks say, oh, you're crazy, you're off the wall. How could that be possible?
Yeah.
When this is done, when you add up what both campaigns spent, when you add up what the outside groups spend,
right,
and not just Citizens for Citizens Unlimited or I've given their name wrong, the Karl Rove group, but when you add up all the different groups, legal women voters, organized labor, the rest, and add all that in at the mix, the Sheldon Adelsons of the world with his $100 million behind Romney and whatnot, you're going to be closer to a $3 billion expenditure. And we'll have a better idea of that between January and March. You don't get it all right away. So, wild.
As I said, I'm only looking for my piece of that, but that's
what could come back to Long Meadow? There you
Absolutely.
go. That's what it should be about. Amen.
$3 billion.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. The interesting part is the Rasmussen's also predicting or calculating there's 6 Senate seats. Right now, they're predicting 47-47, with 6 seats up for toss, up for Eponier in the Senate. Yes. One of which is Massachusetts. Yeah. The polling on the Massachusetts is just the opposite to me of what has happened in the presidential campaign, where you might have had Scott Brown as the leader, and now the polls have kind of gone against him a little bit. I'm very surprised that this anti-woman message that the Democrats and Elizabeth Warren's campaign is delivering is actually sticking to a guy who's married to a very highly professional woman with 2 daughters. Yeah. If he had 7 sons and whatever, and it was I don't even that's not even a good argument. Yeah. But for a guy that's married to a highly professional woman who's very public, Gail Huff, yeah, and 2 daughters who are, one American Idol contestant, yeah, that type, yeah, of thing. I find it odd that it's actually sticking to him. That's the part that I don't understand, is why is it sticking to him? But it just seems like his campaign has done the opposite of the Romney campaign in terms of momentum.
Yeah, that is intriguing on 2 levels, and I'll try to answer short. It's where this really changed for Scott Brown, especially on women's issues and women voters, was in the last debate in Springfield, which was such an important debate. Elizabeth Warren did very well when it came to speaking to women's issues, obviously. The senator did pretty well too overall, but not well enough. He had to rely on celebrity of his wife, his daughters. He relied on his own background, his own issues, what he had grown up with, his domestic abuse issues, and that was helpful to him. But just not enough, Paul, because Elizabeth Warren was able to say, that's all fine and good and dandy, but on these 3 key issues, where you're saying that you're for A, B, and C here on this stage today, when you had a chance to vote that one time, you didn't. And the one that's perhaps moving the needle the most right now is equal pay for equal work. There are a lot of people, this is why, I love when people say, oh, the debates don't matter, you just get through them. That day is gone. Debates do matter. When we look back at Romney, Obama, we'll be able to say that, and in a historical sense, a decade from now. And for Brown Warren, it was the Springfield debate, and it was that momentous second when she was able to, whether it was pre-planned or whether it just hit her at that moment, to say, you say you're for these issues. You're for equal pay for women and whatnot. However, when you had the chance to vote, you didn't. That stuck. And take a look at how the debate and her messaging, the campaign, immediately moved. Her ads were on that night and the very next day talking about those specific issues. Yep. And not to go along with it, but we knew from polling there were about 18% undecided, heavy undecided, that were women voters who were not just undecided, but these were women that we call purge voters. They vote 3 out of 4 elections, 4 out of 4 elections. And I say this not to pander to a woman voting base myself. Women are smarter. They really do weigh it out. It's more than just a social issue. They needed to be moved. Warren moved the needle that night. And for some reason, Scott Brown hasn't addressed that the day after, a week after, whatever. He's only using, those early commercials, those early ads with his wife and with his daughters. And it's kind of not enough is what it comes down to. Yeah. And God bless his wife. She's out there working so hard. And there's a few on both sides, Democrat and Republican, saying, well, where are the daughters, especially the one that was on, American Idol. It would be helpful if she was out there campaigning for him, but we really haven't seen that. Yeah. So give my long answer to that, but it's key and it's essential, and it wasn't so much that it moved the needle with just women's votes. It was that 18%, which just happened to disproportionately be a lot of women. Yeah. Think about that. If you're Elizabeth Warren, that close to an election, and that undecided was there, wow, what an incredible opportunity she had in that debate to address it, fix it, and move past. Now Brown is scrambling to try to make up that room if he can.
But even besides that, I can't believe that one single issue. And I understand what you're saying demographically, because the reality of equal. I mean, I don't know what world Elizabeth Warren lives in now. I mean, because quite frankly, when you look at the statistics, some of it came out that the Obama administration, there isn't equal pay for women in the Obama administration. So if you're going to point the finger, I guess that there's some things that can be pointed back, but it seems to me there's more than that. And I know our state is close to communism as much as possible, but the reality is that in this economic time, is that the single most important issue? I guess it is.
You know something? There you go. You kind of came in with the answer with that. When we look at the crosstabs in the polls, is it simply the social issue, as too often it's looked at, a woman's issue? It's beyond that. It is equated to a lot of folks as an economic issue. If I'm working as hard as a guy, and I'm a woman, I should get equal pay. It's become a cause. It's become more than a social issue. It's become an economic issue. It really has. People vote their hearts, and they vote their pocketbooks and their wallets. And now in Massachusetts, a serious voter bloc, that's a consistent voter bloc, women will show up to vote, more so than men all the time. It's the duty thing. It's almost like the World War II veteran or the Korean veteran says, it's my obligation, I've got to be there today. Women will always find some way to juggle home, work, business to get out there, or do it by absentee ballot or whatever they need to. Well, now they're fired up. They had a woman candidate for the Senate. You'd think that would have been part of it, but it wasn't. They needed something to be a rallying cry, and it looks like in the debate, the senator kind of gave them that opportunity, and that itself became the issue, because that's what so much specific advertising is on. And it's not just Liz Warren, it's other groups like League of Women Voters and others. Emily's List is blanketing the state and using that one issue. And if you look at it, they're not doing it in a traditional just women's issue kind of a way. They're not boxing it in as that. This is an equality issue, and it's even moving some men on the scale too, who are saying, actually a lot of men who are saying, yeah, you know what, that does make sense. Hey, wait a second. And it's more so this, Senator, you said this at the debate, but you voted this way when you were in Washington. Wait a second. So men and women kind of looking at it that way. And not his best moment, unfortunately for him.
And the thing, to me, the issue is, I understand that, you can extrapolate the votes are the bills are massive. Yeah. So there could have been something thrown in there, and I understand that. And I don't understand why he's not explaining that. Yeah. If it was truly, hey, this was part of a bill that was bad, and I voted against the bill, not the issue, and I intend to bring it up or something. Yeah. But I have two daughters, like he does. And I don't understand how this guy isn't speaking from the heart that says, if someone did that to my daughters, they'd have to answer to me before they answer to the Equal Opportunity Employment Center or whatever.
There you go. There you go. That would have worked.
Right.
That would have worked.
That's what I don't understand is not the retaliation, but the response rather.
He seems to be so ready with just the one response. Look at my background, what I dealt with, my mother, my sisters, and what we had to go through. Okay, that was good, but then he stopped short, and she kind of called an audible in the debate, Elizabeth Warren. She took it to another level, and he wasn't ready from his playbook to perhaps go a little further.
So you just see, a sitting U.S. senator and this is a campaign. They're spending 60, 70 million now. I think the projections were 25 million. That number's blown up big time, and the money's coming in from all over for both candidates. It's not just Massachusetts people.
Well, you brought up a good point before too, because you kind of had two parts to that question. I only hit the first part. Forgive me on the second part, missing it, and that's that the balance for the Senate, the control of the Senate is so tight. So Elizabeth Warren, and Scott Brown, whatever happens here, could get canceled out by what happens in Connecticut. Right. Linda McMahon is stunning everybody. It's astonishing. She is running an incredible campaign, really incredible, frankly. I'm stunned by what she's doing. So she wins in Connecticut, and Elizabeth Warren wins in Massachusetts. Those two just canceled each other out. So then you take a look at some of those other really close races. It's, for me, in Maine, become a big issue. Angus King, independent candidate for the U.S. Senate, former governor, running consistently ahead in the polls. 6 people in this race. He's the independent. There's a Democrat, there's a Republican, and 3 more independents. And what happened overnight? When King King came out in a debate not all that long ago and said, geez, if pushed, I'll caucus with the Democrats, even though I want to be an independent. I'm tired of my own party and tired of the Republicans. Don't want to get involved in all that, want to be bipartisan. When it came out, and he was blunt, I will caucus with the Democrats in the Democratic caucus in the Senate if I have to. Overnight, the attack that came in from Karl Rove, from Citizens United, was astonishing. So the real opponent for Angus King in that race right now, and really for the balance of the Senate, is not he against his 5 opponents. It's him against Citizens United. And that's what we're saying. This is so tight. And that's why I say to so many people who are already handicapping, well, the House will stay Republican. Yes, it will. The United States Congress will stay Republican. But on the Senate, it's still jump ball. And there's this quiet, maybe majority, we don't know, silent group of folks all over the country in a lot of swing states that we're watching careful. Remember this, when we were kids, Reagan versus Carter, what were the headlines just before the election? A race too close to call, too tight to call, where all the polls and the media and pundits and the talking heads like me. What happened on Election Day? It was the Reagan landslide. Yep. That's what a lot of us are watching right now. Is there something out there? Is there something shaking and going on that we can't put our hands on? We can right now in early voting and early polling say that if the election, if just the votes that we're in today were tallied, then the president wins re-election with early voting. But that changes when you take a look at the demographic of the folks who might be that silent majority who, just as simplistic as it sounds, Paul, might be thinking, you know what, I'm not real happy about the last 4. I don't have a good vision of the next 4. And 62% of America, including the people who support the president, want to change in this next 4 years. What might they do? How might they flip between now and Election Day? Yeah. This is wild.
And it's, as you see these, some of my Democrat friends have said, well, the polls, you can't trust them. These were the same polls they were trusting 6 months ago, right? But the momentum in the as the chart in this, I want to say, the plotting of these things on a graph, the daily polls that are coming out, they're clearly showing some momentum. I know there's, Nevada's a state where the president has a big lead, and there's a Senate seat there. Yeah. So a lot of that's going to also depend is, in Nevada, if Mitt Romney can make a stronger push, then that might help the Senate candidate and vice versa.
Exactly.
So that has, in my opinion, somewhat that's going to play out for the Senate, those remaining Senate seats. George Allen in Virginia. Romney's now doing very well in Virginia, where he wasn't before. I'm just surprised when you have focus on New Hampshire. And is it 4 electoral votes? Right? Where you're getting, here in Massachusetts you don't see anybody, but in New Hampshire you've got the fight for 4 that's how close this
it really is. It's that tight. Whereas a month and a half ago, many of us were saying in a scientific way, there is no path for Romney to win unless he takes Ohio and obviously takes all, as we call them, the McCain states, grabs a few of the purple states that aren't red or blue anymore. A la Texas is a necessity, but then you start to think about these other serious states, Colorado, Nevada. There is a path for Romney with or without Ohio. And as we sit here in this taping now, I know that this will come out more so in the next 12 hours of this taping. It's begun in the last day or so. People like Chuck Todd and others saying, well, there is a path, there is a way. Presidential historians, who I kind of trust more on this kind of thing, for them being able to take a look at the patterns of the past and how they apply to now. We can see a 269 electoral college. Oh my goodness. And I always love bringing things back to Long Meadow. What's so cool about that? In Long Meadow, Massachusetts, you have a person elected to the Electoral College. Candy Glazer. Everybody knows Candy. She's the head of the Democratic Town Committee, and she's actually an elector. It's a really big deal. Whatever happens, she walks into that House floor, in Boston, and casts her vote for all eternity and whatnot as a Democrat for Obama. But that's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that when I look at how tight this race is, Long Meadow is a good example of something else that I see. And I guess to use the Democrats as an example, the Long Meadow Democratic Town Committee, Candy Glazer, if the Democrats could clone her and send her to all of these different places, she's got it down. She knows how to do it. She knows voter ID, get out the vote, and she's doing it here at home for Warren Brown, obviously for Liz Warren. But here's someone who's basically saying, we know what we've got to do in the Senate campaign, and here's what we've got to do up in New Hampshire. And you know what? Those of you who have got relatives and friends in Connecticut, here's what you've got to be doing down there too. You're seeing that all over the country right now. And I will jump back to the Republican side. I have not seen Republican organizations like this in the States in my entire time. I am stunned by this. It harkens back to Reagan Revolution type stuff, where average regular folks on their own are kind of answering the call. It's not so much organized town committee, state committee, Republicans are coming from the RNC. Average regular folks just showing up at headquarters or doing their own voter IDs amongst their own friends. Gosh, if you're for Mitt Romney, I am, and here's what I want you to do. Here's what we have to do. We have early voting here. Vote early so that on election day you can be holding a sign or helping me get other people to the polls for Mitt Romney. That's what some of these people are doing on their own. I'm seeing that so legitimately in the Republican organizations.
Right.
These outside groups, they're being called the minute people, to put it in from minute men to minute people, showing up and making this kind of thing up. In Michigan, oh my goodness, I'm stunned by it, frankly.
Yeah, and what you're seeing is, a change in perceptions, I think, with the candidates as well on the presidential level. If you had asked me 6 months ago, would Mitt Romney be drawing the crowds that he's drawn, I would have said no.
Okay.
To me, what you're seeing is a reversal of 4 years ago. The event they had at the Red Rocks in Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, the place is phenomenal to have an event. They've had, Sting there doing concerts and all kinds of things. But the size of the crowd to where they were turning people away was very much what Obama was doing 4 years ago. That doesn't seem to, the fire seems to be caught on the other side, so to speak.
I think that is very intriguing you bring that up. There was a time I would have expected that a Republican candidate, especially Mitt Romney, would have to, really, really put a lot of energy and time into the advance of an event. That's one benefit they've got right now. They're not spending 2 weeks to prepare an event. They're moving quickly because they know they're getting the crowds. That's kind of what I'm referring to, too, where I'm saying it's folks outside of Republican organized politics that are showing up. So that's on the minds of a lot of Democratic consultants.
And these aren't Tea Partiers.
No. Paul, great point.
Yeah.
Because I'm hearing that a lot now too in the different consultant circles that we're in. Whether we're advising, a national TV show in the morning, there's about 13 of us that will send things in early AM for one of them. We're all having these sidebar conversations as we're not doing our work, so to speak, and we're talking about that. And what you just brought up is so huge. It's not the Tea Party crowd. These are, we used to call it, the lunch bucket. Independents, Democrats, and Republicans. And that's why we're starting to wonder, is this kind of like 80 a little bit, where you had, Democrats for Reagan and that crossover kind of a thing that happened. Who are these people? And you take a look at it, it's the folks that are really feeling squeezed, top and bottom, and just concerned overall.
Right.
On the Democratic side, that's similar too. We're seeing a group of people show up at the Obama events that aren't the same as the crowds before. Hence the crowds are a little smaller. It's not the under 25 crowd showing up in droves. Has something happened? Are they just more electronically tuned in? They don't need to show up and they're voting, or they will vote separately, or are they not there? That's the question mark.
Well, and that's interesting because I think 4 years ago, that bracket, that age bracket of young adults, we're looking, and again, I think Barack Obama had a great message 4 years ago, much like Deval Patrick did his first term. Here's my vision for the future. It was Reagan, it was the Reagan type of vision.
Yeah.
He doesn't have, obviously, President Obama doesn't have that vision anymore because now it's just like, let's not lose what we did and we'll go forward, where you have that Mitt Romney shining city on the hill type of speech. What I am thoroughly impressed with, and I think, during the Republican presidential debates, Mitt Romney had the polling numbers that said, I'm up here, everybody else is down here, don't go into the fray. And he took it, and he took it. And I think that I think what happened with some of the change of this in that first debate were Republicans and maybe undecideds that said, I saw Mitt work in those presidential debates with the 7 or 8 Republicans on there, gosh, golly, gee whiz, just standing there, laughing a little bit. When he came out swinging in that first debate, he impressed people. He impressed someone like me who said, does he have what it takes to fight for this job, knowing what his opponent is capable of? I mean, a great orator, commanding the crowd, that type of thing. And not just to folks like me. And I think that's where you're seeing the groundswell, is that he acted as if he was the president in that first debate. And like you said, the other two didn't matter at that point, because in between then you had Joe Biden with his laughing, and I think that did more. I understand that was for the base. Joe Biden was there; he was the attack dog to lick the wounds and get the base back, feeling good about each other. But to me, as a parent, when you tell your kids don't interrupt, Don't be mean, let the person talk. I think that vice presidential debate set the tone of, what is this guy? He's the vice president. He's not being courteous to his opponent. And you didn't see that too much. I know the president and Mitt Romney interrupt each other, but not to that degree. But I think when the folks saw Mitt Romney coming out, acting like the president, saying, here's what my vision is. No, that's not what I said. Yeah. And correcting the lies, I say lies, but the ads, correcting $300 million worth of ads. That's not who I am. Yeah. It turned folks.
Well, even there too, we have Super Bowl-sized audiences watching these debates now. That's what's astonishing. Right. And whether they're watching it live on one of the networks or an hour later on the net or streaming or on their TiVo or whatever, those people heard Mitt Romney say one key thing. It didn't matter what the facts were or not. That's not who I am. Let me tell you who I am. That was important. That was worth how much money in television advertising right there. Right. And that there was an audience that size. And if you look at the sound bites over the next 24 hours, picked by the networks and others, that got there. It got through, on top of what the Romney campaign was able to take and get out there on their own. But there's the other piece of this, I think, that's gigantic right now with all this, is that, it is a situation where Romney's team has done a really good job in getting those salient points out within the swing states where it's important. And we've seen it, as I say, broken down even into counties, specific counties with a specific message up to this point, and now the Romney stuff is more generic. In my profession, as we look at that change and we're seeing the, how do I say, feel good about America. And I keep thinking of Reagan's ads. There's an aspect of this there. It's morning again in America, that kind of a thing. Yeah. Romney is combining Reagan's second-term messages with first-term messages. And he's looking tall in the saddle. He's looking presidential. And there's another piece of this too, Paul. I think you said it well here. The first debate was important for another reason. If you don't fight for yourself, you're not going to fight for me. And God bless the president. When you looked at the polling after, and you had 31% of the people polled saying, wow, it's as if the president doesn't want to do this anymore. And that sounds simplistic, because of course you want to do it if you're the president of the United States, you're running for re-election. But 31% of those polled, including Democrats in that number, just felt like he's disengaged, he doesn't want to do it anymore, and if he doesn't want to do it for him anymore, is he going to want to do it for me? Romney looked like he had showed up for the job interview and he wanted the job. The guy who has the job was kind of ambivalent about it. That first debate, seriously, they're going to be talking about that debate the same way that we still talk today about Kennedy-Nixon in 1960. Yep. It's the same thing.
And I think his choice of vice presidential running mates, of all the people that you could go out and pick, was brilliant on his part. Because here's a guy who's not afraid to take the heat. Let him go be your attack dog, and that type of thing. And he had a part of the base that Mitt didn't have. Yeah. And that gave instant credibility that, okay, Mitt might not be the ultra-conservative or a conservative that I want, not even ultra, but I have a guy over here who will fight for me in that administration. But
it's funny too, because Paul Ryan wasn't just important for Wisconsin, but I look at Michigan as an example. And as I like to say, when you're up in Michigan, Michigan looks like a hand, and we always talk about the upper northern area there. That area has gotten fired up by Paul Ryan, and I'm stunned by that. He speaks a message to the Upper Peninsula, as it's correctly called. Gosh, you're almost like you're in Canada up there. It's like a different part of the country. But these folks are voting, and he's made that. If anyone had said to me that Michigan would be contended by Mitt Romney, I would have thought there's just no possible way. After the gaffes about Michiganian trees and after the whole car industry piece and whatnot, this shouldn't be a contest. Who's kind of made it a contest? Paul Ryan. And it's intriguing, too, because I think everyone would agree on this. You're seeing a lot less emphasis on Ryan and his events. It's quiet, the hard work, so to speak, the smaller crowds, the working of the phones. I don't know what vitamin pill this guy is taking, but he's working it 24/7. Arguably, you can say that Joe Biden's an older guy, and Joe Biden's got other duties as the Vice President of the United States that take up his time. But there's no comparison right now. And I like Joe Biden personally. I've had the good fortune to sit down at 2 o'clock in the morning and have pizza and beer with him and whatnot in New Hampshire. He's a fun guy. We did some work for him back in the Senate days. But it is intriguing, because a lot of Democrats were giddy when Ryan got picked. But it was a good pick for the base and what it's doing. And you brought up another good point here too. It's not the Tea Partiers that we're seeing out there. It's a different group of folks. Some of us are starting to think that Ryan's made a connection with some of these people who are thinking about the hard work for down the road, the changes of the things that have to be done. Ryan in polling comes up something with another interesting number too. And some Democrats even thinking this, well, geez, if Romney does win, Ryan's got a lot of juice and a lot of weight within the House, and he's found ways to get Democrats to vote for things. Right. Can he do the same? What America wants right now, more than anything else, more than they want Mitt Romney, more than they want Obama, they want peace. They want prosperity. They want to feel good about America again, and they want something else. They want this total, and I'll get in trouble, cluster screw that continues in Washington to stop. Yep. And there's this number out there that thinks that Paul Ryan can help make that happen on Capitol Hill. More so than Joe Biden, God bless him.
Tony, in my business as a financial advisor, people they're worried about their money. And I've got Democrats and Republicans and independents who are clients. And the theme is the same. Yeah. I'm worried about tomorrow. And even though they might be okay, what happens to my kids? So I think, and that to your point of, they want to see this end, the partisanship. And I know this has been going on since the founding of the country and so forth. And I get that. But I think to the point now, what's amazing, and I'm going to use my example of how I think things are different. 4 years ago, Twitter wasn't a big deal. Facebook was just starting to really blossom. There was a situation where Mitt Romney was at a rally with Paul Ryan, and they kept saying Romney, and he said no, Romney, Ryan. And the major media spun it as, oh, he had to include his own name because the crowd was chanting so much for Paul Ryan. Yeah. Instantly, the videos were on Facebook. Instantly, it was being tweeted out that didn't happen that way by people who were there. Yeah. And I know some of these politicians have more fans than major newspapers have subscribers now. So it changes the dynamics a little bit, that you can't get away with and I know not every major media outlet was saying that, but a lot of them were.
Sure.
But it was instantaneously for people who might say, oh my God, what was Mitt Romney thinking? Oh, okay, he didn't do it. So they were just spinning it in a way that made it look bad. But it was just the opposite. He was saying, no, this is my guy. Yeah. This is the guy who's with me. And he was bringing him in and saying, no, we're a team here. So what it did for people like me who heard these reports that Mitt Romney went off the deep end and say, no, it's me on top, is just the opposite, and say, wait a minute, and that's, I think, at the start, right before that debate, of things starting to say, wait a minute, this isn't what they're portraying it as. And when you can Twitter it, when you can Facebook it, when you can attach that YouTube video to your emails, it changes the dynamics of the influence of the media. And Joe Trippi, I wrote that down because I want to mention your buddy Joe Trippi. Before the first debate, I was listening to the pre-spin. Everything that he mentioned Romney needed to do, he did. And he said if he's not able to do this and connect on that level, then it's not going to work out for him. And there's a Democrat consultant saying what the Republican candidate had to do, and he did exactly what Joe Trippi had laid out. Obviously not listening to that, but and I thought that was amazing that he actually hit on every point what the Democrat was saying he needed to do.
Absolutely. And here's Trippi, arguably responsible for changing a lot of things pre-Obama with Howard Dean, the way they used the internet and the rest. Very good consultant, got a lot of background and work from Joe Napolitan of Springfield International, consultant, brilliant consultant Napolitan. I wish that Joe were around to be able to have heard Trippi before the debate, because you just hit it right out of the ballpark. Trippi said it was as if Trippi were doing the Babe Ruth thing and pointing for the batter that's coming up. There's where you got to hit. And then Romney did do it. And that's what I was referring to a little bit earlier too. When you look at how you legitimately rank a debate, how you legitimately say who won, who got what done, what you needed to look for, Romney scored in those areas. And I know it's a hard thing for a lot of Democrats and a lot of folks that are very supportive of the president to realize or to accept, but he did do just what he needed to do. He won the first big fight. And when we're fight fans, so I'm thinking of Ali Frazier in the 3 fights, right? And I keep liking it almost to that. But in the first one, he did what he needed to. And in the other two, he just had to not get knocked out. And he did a little bit better than that. He went with the champ right to the count. He went right to the judges' decisions in both instances. And they were unanimous decisions with no tiebreaker, with no final decision. That was a huge piece. Trippi was on target. That's what I always love about this profession too. Here's a guy like Joe Trippi, who is pretty sharp, and he's not in the Obama campaign right now. Instead, he's doing what myself and a lot of other people do. We're telling the media what's happening. And you bring up that other grand point early. With Twitter, with Facebook, the rest, anything should be fair game. Anything right now should be out there for the public to know what's going on. Legitimate Twitter folks, Facebook people, legitimate folks walking around with their camera phones are taking the place of the Fourth Estate or helping the Fourth Estate. We all used to rely upon, the Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the Republican, and they're still good. In fact, I'll even sidebar for a second. I think some of the best political reporting that we're seeing right now, and I'm hearing this from people in Washington and in Boston, these very, very young reporters at the Republican, at TV22. It's astonishing some of the things that they're asking. We view it as local, but oh gosh, Rob Rizzuto at the newspaper and Shira Schoenberg are shocking. And you know something? I don't think they're 25, 26 years old. And they may be, and when I say that, they're using the new age. It's the reason I bring this up. They're using what they're seeing on the internet and whatnot faster than my friends at the Boston Globe and the Boston Herald are able to. They're beating Pulitzer Prize winning, award-winning players in the Globe and whatnot and doing cutting-edge stuff. The other thing, too, that I'm coming to find, too, is with all this new technology out there, there's less bias. It's hard to be reporting it in a biased way when you could have thousands of people out here who are saying, you reported this, but here's my video of what actually happened. Right. And that's the point of what you make on that Romney-Ryan chant thing. That was no Howard Dean moment for Mitt Romney. And more so, it was gone quickly. It didn't become 2 and 3 days. It's like, because of the social media, it's like the binders of women thing. It was a nanosecond in the reality of a campaign, okay? And why do you want people, if you're doing it on the Democratic side, to focus on the binders of women comments and whatnot? Because you don't want them focused on Benghazi instead. Right. It's the blue smoke and mirrors. We want you thinking the battle is over here when it's really over here.
And actually, I would have thought that was more of a Bill Clinton internal issue with the binders of women. Do we have a lot of time? I'm only teasing. Do we have any time left here? Yeah, no, we're done. Okay, we're pretty much done. All right, well, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming,
that was
first
good.
of all.
It's great.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Upside. Have a great day.
Good show.